Hey, Garden Dad here. Welcome back. This session I wanted to show you some of my beds out in the field. It's springtime or getting to be springtime here. The bluebirds are nesting in the houses. I'm starting to hear birds chirping, and it's kind of mild. It might be 35 or 40 here, so I wanted to get outside. Today I'm going to show you some of my beds, how I use plastics to suppress weeds, how I use leaf mulch to try to rejuvenate the soil, what the beds look like before and after. I'm going to show you how I double dig my garlic beds and have little moats that hold the water. And I'm going to show you my what I call my kitchen vegetable garden bed, where it's a much smaller scale, where you'll see some, 4 foot by 3 foot, maybe 5 foot by 3 foot raised beds, and how I approach that. Okay, so we'll get started. Hi, so I'm out here. It's a nice day. The ground's still frozen, not too muddy. I wanted to show you a couple of my beds. This was my squash bed last year. It's a big bed. It's like 20 feet by 40 feet. Your beds do not need to be this big, but what I want to show you is something you can all do. So during the year when I grow my garden, I get weeds, and I try to pull up the weeds at the end of the year, get everything out of the ground as best I can. Then I will put leaves down on top of the whole garden, and then I'll cover it up with heavy duty plastic, and I'll put weights on it to hold it down so the wind doesn't blow it away over the winter. And what the leaves do is they provide great mulch. They add like a compost back into the ground. They encourage earthworms. I read earthworms, 1,000 earthworms will produce 40 pounds of compost in a year. There's probably thousands, plural, maybe tens of thousands of earthworms that'll be in this field, in this particular bed. In any event, so I try to go as organic as I can, try to use no chemicals. I might use some standard fertilizer, but try to use basically leaves for mulch, and then that encourages earthworms. I also use a lot of straw. Next year, this will be my squash bed. This year it will be in fallow. It'll just be sitting there with the leaves decomposing. I have another bed that I'll swap, that I'll show you in a second, that will be my squash next year. So I rotate my crops. This bed had my squash 2 years ago. And at the end of that season, I tried cleaning it up, put some leaves down, put some plastic on top of it, and it had the plastic during the year last year. I took the plastic off at the end of the year, and you could see how nice and clean it got. So hopefully the bed that I just showed you with the plastic on it is going to be that clean next year when I'm ready to plant in that bed. But this year, this bed's going to get squash. So here's my compost pile at the end of the bed. I've got fresh compost behind the fence so that animals don't rummage in it. And that's coming, those are our kitchen scraps, right? Those aren't, no meat, it's all vegetables and lettuce and stuff like that, peppers and whatever else, celery. And then underneath this black plastic is past year's compost. And I leave the plastic down so that weeds don't grow up in it. And what'll happen is when I go to plant the vegetable garden this year, I will pull up the plastic and I'll take a few shovelfuls of this stuff, and you'll see it later. It's really rich organic matter, and I'll put that in with my plants as I plant them. One of the things that I talk about is having raised beds. I don't use wooden frames for my raised beds. I use a technique called double digging for a couple of reasons. One, we have really heavy soil, lots of clay. Over the years, it's gotten better because I've grown green manures and I put leaves and straw in as mulch, but it's just a lot of clay. So what I do is I will dig dirt from my paths and I'll pile it in to the beds. So the paths are down to the hard rock dirt that I wouldn't plant in, and then the beds get twice as high. Now these beds are my garlic beds. I planted garlic in them this past autumn, and I'll be talking to you about the garlic cycle because it'll be coming up in, well, it's sprouting now, but these beds have garlic in them, and then I use leaf mulch on top of the garlic to keep the weeds down. But you'll see that the garlic is above the water. It's really wet. This is very wet soil down here, plus with the clay, it doesn't really drain that well. So the double digging also gives me this moat of water to keep it away from my plants. Before I started doing this, I had my garlic underwater and I would lose my crop or it'd rot out. Now it doesn't do that anymore. And then in addition, that water kind of serves to kind of irrigate the beds. So when I talk about double digging, I just talk about basically where my paths are going to be. I pile the dirt on top of the beds and the beds get higher. So I wanted to show you what is our kitchen vegetable garden bed, if you will. And you could see it's not fancy. The fence is all bent up because I've been using it over the years. I got an old screen in there because there was a hole that rabbits were getting through, and I used some recycled wood. I'm into recycling. I'm not into throwing stuff out. So doing my part as best I can to try to save the environment. It's not a fashion show. You can tell by the clothes I'm wearing. It's not a fashion show. This is all about exercise and gardening and growing some stuff that you like. So the garden's not that pretty, but I'm going to take you inside it and show you the mini versions of my raised beds. Okay, it's kind of muddy out here, so I don't know that I'm going to be out here that long, but these are, you could maybe tell, they're individual raised beds. They may be 4 or 5 feet long, 2 or 3 feet wide, and then I have paths in between each one. So it's 2 beds. They're in pairs, a path down the middle and a path in between each one. And then one of the things that I do that I'll show you when I start planting is I will redouble dig these paths. So I cleaned up all the weeds, and you could tell the weeds are starting to germinate again. You really can't tell, but if you close up on the video, you could see they're coming up already because I don't really get my weeds pulled before they go to seed. And I'm pulling them in the fall and all the seeds are falling in, and that's a problem. So weeds are always going to be a problem. But that's okay. I'm in survival of the fittest mode. What I'll do is I will double dig these paths again. So any dirt that fell into the paths will go on top. And then I put old carpeting down. So my friends get into remodeling mode and they're throwing out old carpeting, and now they know, hey, you want my old carpeting? And I say, sure. And I take the carpeting and I cut it up in 2 foot wide strips and I lay it down, and that keeps the weeds down out of my paths. So this is my garden. Doesn't have to be fancy. I use like this 2 inch by 4 inch wire fence, but I found that rabbits can get through it. Oddly, I don't know how a rabbit could get through it, but I witnessed it with my own eyes. I saw a rabbit in my garden eating something, and I chased it out, and it made it through the fence. So then I had to start putting chicken wire along the bottom 2 feet. So you may just want to put up chicken wire. You're not going to keep the deer out. You know, if you could get 2 foot chicken wire, that'd be nice to have 4 foot chicken wire if it's cheaper than this 2 inch by 4 inch fencing. I think if I have to enclose another bed, and I may be doing that because I'm starting to grow more beets in another bed, I may try to see if I can get my hands around some 4 foot chicken wire. It might be cheaper than this stuff, this galvanized stuff. Okay, so hopefully that gave you a modest review of the beds that I have, the approach I take to trying to keep weeds down, using the plastic, using leaf mulch to try to rejuvenate the soil, the double digging I do, and even a little quick look at my kitchen vegetable garden. You'll be seeing more of all of these as the gardening season goes on, but I just wanted to give you some perspective. So get your plastic down or get your cardboard boxes down onto your grass where you want to start a garden. We'll get you going with a garden real soon. In the meantime, smile at everybody, be kind to everybody, and have a great day every day.